Basis will look to hear from candidates standing in the said election. It's October the 30th, and I'm joined now by the first of our candidates. If you just tell us who you are and which party you represent.
Hi, yes, I'm David Wickham, and I'm representing the English Democrats.
Okay, Mr. Wickham, just tell us a little bit about yourself to begin with.
Okay, I'm a local candidate. I live and work in Corby. Have done for the last 19 years now. Family man.
Why specifically have you decided to stand in this election?
Good question. In fairness, I kind of got to a point where I, along with many others, was sitting there watching Question Time and kind of arguing with the television myself. And it's just got to a point that I don't want to be sitting here in 5 years' time whining and whinging about the state and the mess of the country and not actually having tried to do something to correct that. So for me, that's the biggest motivator. I want to stand up now and actually do something to help correct some of these issues.
And what are the important issues as far as you're concerned locally?
Locally? Well, again, I think the local issues all come from the national issues. I mean, yes, we all understand that we have a global economic issue. Yes, we all understand the level of our national debt. Yes, we all understand that the austerity measures are required in order to reduce our national debt, but it's to the extreme that the government are going to in order to reduce that debt. If you look at some of the things they're doing around ATOS assessments, what they're looking to do with our social welfare systems and reduce those, and all of these savings allegedly are being made by the government, and we're not actually reducing any of our national debt. All we're doing, in my opinion, is targeting the most vulnerable of our society, and we're kind of paying for the mistakes of others, and I don't think that's fair.
So are the English Democrats committed to actually cutting the deficit?
Yes, absolutely. We have a core policy that charity begins at home. In terms of our views on the European Union, yes, we want a referendum. Our position is that we want out of the European Union. And in terms of those 53 million pounds a day that we send to Europe and more, if you look taking the payments that we make via the IMF, then that money could be used for this country. We have quite a few policies around what we'd like to do with taxation and how we'd fund that through coming out of the EU.
The English Democrats themselves seem to be formed on the basis of giving more representation to England in the form of an assembly or a parliament, if you just want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we actually believe in giving more representation to everybody. At the core of our policies is democracy, and which we actually feel has been eroded in this country. The best analogy that I use is I have 4 children. Now, if I was giving them pocket money, would I give 3 of them a fiver and 1 of them a quid? No, I wouldn't. And that's effectively what this semi-devolutionary state has provided us. We have an assembly stroke of parliament for Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland. And they actually work in terms of local representation. You look at some of the successes of Holyrood, then I think they're a model. What we failed to do is give England that same right, which is why in England now, if our children want to go to university, they're placed into debt around tuition fees. That's why we're paying for prescription charges where nowhere else in the UK is doing that, because we don't have an English Parliament that could have argued those points. So for us, it's about 4 assembly stroke of parliaments for the UK, because we do believe in securing and protecting the UK, and that's all part of our plan in coming out of the EU.
Right. I saw an article on your website which said that Scotland was a burden in terms of the sort of subsidy. You only feel that the amount of money given to Scotland is unfair compared to the rest of Britain. Is that right?
No, there are members in our party that feel that the Barnett formula is an unfair equation. And in fairness, if you actually look at the core detail of the Barnett formula, then yes, it is unfair. But again, this comes back to we are one country. The United Kingdom has always been stronger and better together. And this is why we're looking to sort of hold a meeting on the 10th of November to discuss this very issue around the Scottish independence referendum. There's a call for non-residential Scottish to be included within that referendum. And I think they're important issues. But I think the referendum possibly should be widened. At the same time, let's have a referendum on an English Parliament, and at the same time, let's have a referendum on coming out of the EU. So they're key issues for us, yes, very much so.
It's interesting we're talking about a referendum during a different election. Do you think that Scots in Corby should be allowed a vote?
Well, it's an emotive topic. The thing is, if I was living in Scotland, would I expect to be given a right around Scottish national matters? Probably not. But again, if we're looking at it from a nationalistic point of view, then I suppose the argument will always be no. If we look at it from a patriotic view, in terms of the United Kingdom, then my viewpoint is everybody in the UK, in terms of being British, has a say in this. This is something that's going to fundamentally affect the rest of our lives, the rest of our children's lives. Because, and again, this is another side that the media don't really sort of draw down into. If the referendum has a yes vote, then the Act of Union is gone. It's finished. So effectively, the United Kingdom is gone. What happens then? Do we automatically become a part of this European superstate? Do the Europeans immediately roll out into this regionalisation plan where England is broken up into 9 separate regions? Because that's their published plan. You know, the only thing that stops them at the moment is the very structure of the UK. And that's why, again, at the heart of our policies is the preservation of the United Kingdom. You know, and I keep sort of banging on about this. We are stronger together as a nation. Yeah, we've had a bit of a rough history, there's no denying that. But we are so intermingled. You know, I think certainly in Corby, on a local level, then all of us have Scottish members in our family. You know, the Scottish, there's Irish, there's English, and I take my own family as a prime example of that. This is our country, and that's the United Kingdom, and that's what we have to preserve. But I do think, in terms of local government, then, you know, if we look at the models of the Assembly and Parliaments, Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland, then they have set a very good model for how government and democratic government can run forward in this country.
Just touching back on the EU, I know you said you're looking for a referendum as such, and looking at our relationship with the European Union. I also read that you're against mass immigration into Britain. Can you just elaborate on that? What's the problem as far as you're concerned?
The problem as far as I'm concerned, I mean, yes, again, it's another emotive topic, but the reality is, and the facts speak for themselves, we have taken far too many foreigners into our country. Mass open-door, uncontrolled immigration has overburdened our NHS, our social welfare and benefit systems, to the point now that this is where a lot of these knee-jerk draconian austerity measures are being driven from. You know, there are 40,000 children, non-resident, in the UK receiving child benefit, but British people now are being told that they're going to lose child benefit. It's ridiculous. Excuse me. In terms of the numbers and the sheer numbers, you know, the EROS program, you know, the European Union have announced only in the last sort of 7 days, they're now going to pay, Spain's going to be the pilot country, they're now going to pay Spanish nationals up to £1,000 to come to the UK to work. You know, again, it's additional pressure on our jobs, on our social benefit and welfare systems, on the NHS. We have to control it, and we strongly advocate an Australian/Canadian point-based system. Is it sensible to sit there and say we stop immigration? Of course not. This country's been built on immigration, and it has, and that's a reality. And we have to be adults and have that conversation. But we cannot sustain the numbers that we've taken in. And in terms of what we're looking at in terms of the European Union now, you know, we've got Turkey coming in. They're talking to Bulgaria, Romania, Croatia, Serbia. You know, these are all areas where there is extreme unemployment. So yes, quite naturally, those people are going to look to areas that they can freely move to in order to gain jobs, to better their lives. We understand that, but we do not have the infrastructure in this country to support that level of immigration. It's drained our resources, and and again, I'm not going to apologise for it. We strongly believe charity begins at home.
The English Democrats are standing in Corby for the first time. What are your expectations for this election?
Well, my expectations, I don't know, do I have a crystal ball? The key thing is getting our message out there, making and allowing a situation where the electorate of Corby and East Northampton, in fairness, understand that we are a viable and credible alternative to the mainstreams. So our key message at the moment is one of education, understanding what our policies are, what we stand for, and more importantly, understanding the risk to this country. You know, if nothing else comes from this election other than people go out onto the internet and search and understand what the EROS program is, what the regionalisation plans are within the EU, then we've been successful. That's our aim. You know, we're in it to win it, but, you know, as all things, as I say, I don't have a crystal ball, so we'll see where it goes.
Candidates in the Corby by-election